Hello and welcome to the Dark Mount video review for Planet X Caelus, who is a War for Cybertron / Fall of Cybertron Swoop. In his Dino mode, Swoop is a Pteranodon with a massive wingspan and a whole boatload of paint and panel detailing. I mean, just the molded in detailing on this guy is out of this world. This is my first Planet X product, and I am incredibly impressed. So if this is how their stuff looks, I'm going to keep an eye out in the future. There are honestly just too many paint apps to even go through and name. That would take me a good 7 minutes, and I'm not going to... That's nuts. Look at this. Look at these little tiny paint apps. It's nuts. He comes with 4 weapons, 2 of each type. These missile pods here, which are non-firing, and these swords, which are very reminiscent of Grimlock's swords from the Generations line, and I will show that off in the size comparison. Now, you can plug these swords into this port, however, the gun does not peg so well into this region, so generally you're going to end up in this configuration, although I believe you can plug this into the back of the gun, and you could, for example, plug these into the side of the gun. So you definitely have a couple different display and usage and storage options going on. And these wings are incredibly posable, so you won't really have any problem with these getting in your way too much. Remove those for the time being. And those fit on... Honestly, I hate using words like perfect, but pretty much perfectly. They're not too tight, they're not loose, they're really just right. They did a good job with that. As for articulation, he has bend in the wings there, which will go down as far as the side bits allow, and up pretty far. He also has some tilt in the wing, since it is connected right here on a peg. It also has bend about 90 degrees, a little bit more when you bend down, and bend pretty far on these end bits. These hands here will bend this way and swivel back and forth. And you do have head articulation. However, these two pieces are not connected, so if you attempt to move this or this independently, they won't stay together. So you do have to move it like this. The mouth opens, and these feet are articulated in 2 different places. They have a pin right here, allowing them to swing forward and backward, and they're also on a hinge up here, allowing them to swing up and down. So he does have both legs and ankles, which is very nice. You can get him into a couple different stances, or you can have them trailing behind him in a couple different ways. It's totally up to you. It's a very decent amount of articulation for tiny bird legs. Gotta say that much. These bits on the back of his wings go up a little bit, and then they fold in for transformation. And these red accent pieces right here also move. These black ones will move from there all the way down, and these top fins move about that much. Size comparison. This guy has a massive wingspan, so this is going to be a little difficult. Bear with me. This is him. Next to standard generations Starscream. Next to the classic Seeker mold. Next to Generations Ratbat. And next to Fans Project, Smart Robin. So, this guy isn't necessarily huge in stature, in terms of the actual size of his, bot hood, but he has a really massive wingspan with a lot of really interesting detailing on it, so that's very cool. For transformation, first thing you want to do is pull these arms out of the sides, and they are tabbed in right here. So you want to untab those, and they will actually ratchet out. Then you can come up here, get the bird head, and you can bend the wings out of your way if you want. Fold this down, fold this down, and then fold these inside. Once you're done that, you can pry these pins right here loose. Unfurl the legs and spin them around. You can also flip these panels on the side in to fill in the sides of the legs. And fold this part out to be heel stabilization. Always appreciated. Fold the legs straight, and these will rest flat up against the knees. Then come around to the side here, disconnect this whole unit from the chest, and do the same on the other side. And just fold those back and keep them out of the way. Once you've done that, you're going to want to pull this piece, this whole side bit, out, pegs in, right there, pull it up, and peg it in right in the hole directly above it. So you go from there to there. Again, unpeg, fold up, peg back in, then fold the beak down, that locks in place, get a nice little head reveal. And now on the back, this entire back assembly will scoot up, and these back parts that you unpegged before will peg right back in where they were. After that's done, I believe you're technically supposed to rotate this thruster out backwards like this. Not entirely sure why that is, so I usually don't do that because it does kind of stick out. But for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll go with that. Then on the wings, you can fold in these little bits if you so choose. You don't technically have to, although it is part of the transformation. And take these little hand bits and fold them down. And they kind of fit snugly side by side right there. They don't take up very much room at all. Again, fold it in, and tuck it in again. Now you have to open these arms, and conveniently they provide a small little tab there on the side that is incredibly easy to pop open. It's one of the best flip open arm hand concealing joint bits I've ever seen on a transformer before, which is a delight. And there you have Caelus in his bot mode. And again, his wingspan is impressive. That's massive. I mean, he's a spry dude, but his wings are, I mean, bigger than he is. So, cool. Due to his massive amount of articulation, however, you can get them in pretty much any pose that you want. I mean, anything that your heart can come up with can make them look like, I mean, anything, really. Anything that wings could do, that is. Or you can just keep them out. I usually kind of fold them up like this and have them tilted up a little bit. But that is entirely personal preference. With his weapons, you can either attach the gun or the sword to his hand. However, the only issue is that the peg on his arm is so far up that for him to be able to use anything, his arm must be bent. Which isn't terrible, but not optimal either. Since both of the pegs on this are pretty equally distant from the end of the plastic, neither one's really better in that under position. But remember, you still have wing pose ability, so you could put whichever one you're not using in the wing ports. Now, for size comparison, here he is next to his buddy Grimlock. And now, hopefully, you can see that he's a pretty tiny dude. He's not very big. He has a big presence about him, but he's definitely not taking up a lot of room on anyone's shelf. That's for one thing. The swords are almost entirely identical. Except for the fact that this one has a small bar there, where this one does not. And there's diagonal molding here, where this one's simply circular. And then you have the difference in the top. But other than that, they're very, very, very similar swords, which is very cool. Here's next to Generation Shockwave. So there's about his scale. If you have one of these sitting around, it's about the size you're getting, and then tack on a couple, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches on either side for wings, depending on how you plan to have them curled up. And one more. Optimus Prime. Before he was Optimus Prime. Here he is with Generations Orion Pax. So you're working with a pretty small figure here. Like I said before, it's not to say he's a bad figure at all. For articulation, you have all the same stuff in the wings, so I'm not going to spend another 20 minutes going through all that. The wings are really articulated. Arms. Oh, sorry. My apologies. There is a kind of fold out shoulder armor look that you can do too. So for arm articulation, you have a decent amount. Whatever you don't have is just due to kind of wing limitations, and you can usually get that stuff out of the way, so you can get his arm going all the way around. You have a ratcheted joint in and out. It goes from here all the way down. You have an upper arm swivel, elbow bend, and no hand articulation except the transformation joint. You have a bit of a waist rotation, but the bird head gets in the way, so you would have to move that to be able to rotate it. You have good hip rotation, although very stiff on mine. Goes from about here to all the way back here, depending on where the back is placed. And it also goes all the way up, so you can do some mega splits. You have an upper thigh swivel, a knee bend, and foot tilts, but no ankle tilts, which is kind of the one thing I do miss on this. I would have loved some ankle tilt. He's got a lot of wings and a lot of different ways to pose them, so it would have just given you one more way to make sure he stays really stable. That's not to say that you can't balance him. His heel and foot actually do a very good job of working together to balance him. Once you get him posed, he's pretty much staying where he is, which is nice. For the head, it's on a ball joint, so you have a decent range of movement there. And his face sculpt is actually pretty cool. He's got some nice detailing on his back horn here. Unfortunately, his light piping does not work very well. However, the light piping in his pterodactyl head does work. Works even better in robot mode, which is a nice plus. Again, I just want to point out the insane amount of paint apps and just tiny little details on this figure. It's really very impressive. I'm not entirely sure if it comes off in video, but this thing looks just amazing. So, do I like this figure? I really do. I had no idea if I was going to like this guy. I had watched a couple video reviews on their, I believe it was their first release. It might have just been their first mass release. I think it was Genesis something or other. He is a... Wow. Omega Supreme. That took far too long. He is an Omega Supreme based on his War for Cybertron design, although I'm not entirely convinced because he's got some strange stuff going on. I wasn't entirely sure if I liked him. He's really huge and really kind of expensive, so I didn't go for him. I saw this guy. He was still a little bit on the pricey side, but I really like Swoop and I really like flying dinosaurs. So I went for him, and I'm giddy that I did. This thing is impressive. I'm not committing to it downright because that's just silly, but I'm probably going to be at least looking into purchasing anything else that these guys put out. I would love to see them do the rest of the Dinobots. Honestly, I would even purchase it if they decided to redo Grimlock himself. If this is the style in which they're going to be doing it, and this is the amount of detail and articulation and just attention to quality, the quality control on this thing is also fantastic. There's not a single paint line out of place. Nothing is loose. Nothing is popped off a single time. It's fantastic. I'm incredibly impressed by this figure. So all in all, this guy is a really awesome figure who's got an insane amount of detail, a really good amount of posability, and honestly just looks really, really great and feels really, really great. Everything on him is solid. Nothing is loose. Nothing is going to fall off on you. And I can't necessarily recommend all of their products because this is the only one that I've had, but this one is really quite nice. And if this is the type of product they're going to be putting out, I'm probably going to be a pretty big fan of theirs. So check this guy out, and if you get him, enjoy. Thank you very much for watching.